Hey there. Are you tired of waiting for the next episode of It's Probably Not Aliens? Well, we've got some good news for you. On Nebula, our streaming service, you can get access to all our episodes a week early. That's right, you'll never have to wait again to hear Scott and I debunk the latest ancient astronaut theory or get a movie fact wrong. But that's not all. Nebula is home to dozens of content creators we know you like, so you can find all your favorites in one place. Plus, we post content on there that you won't find anywhere else. And the best part? By signing up for Nebula at nebula.tv/probablyNotAliens, you're directly supporting the show and both of us. So don't wait any longer. Join Nebula today and listen to the next episode right after this one.
Hey everyone. Really quickly before the episode begins, just a little content warning. This episode talks about mental illness and psychoses and things of that nature. So if that's not something you are in the mood to listen to, then, we'll see you next time. We'll see you next week. No worries. No worries about it. Hey, Tristan.
Hello, Scott. Nice wanderer.
I don't know if you know this story. I don't know. This episode's coming out probably months after this is even a story. So, which is a kind of something that I like about this podcast, because we can take new, things that are new to us and news in our world and sort of have people relive it in a sense. They'll be like, oh man, I remember when that was a story. For example, I always think when I'm having a sad day, I'm always thinking about the time that boat got stuck. You remember when that boat got stuck?
That boat getting stuck,
oh, man.
Yeah. Anytime, yeah. I will long for the days when we can come back to boat getting stuck. That was one of the happiest moments to be on social media.
What a good time.
Mm-hmm.
So I say that to preface that this is new. This is a thing that is unfolding in front of us, this story that I'm about to tell you. Are you familiar with the TikToker who fell in love with her psychiatrist?
So the answer is yes and no, in the sense that, and this is a regular occurrence I have when I'm scrolling through TikTok, is that there's a lot of people talking about something that's going on, but I have no clue what the thing is. I just hear around the thing for a while.
Yes.
And it's actually, TikTok makes it very hard to actually find the thing. And I don't know why, but people, Twitter was annoying for people doing what we called vague posting, but TikTok is 10 times worse, where everyone is it's almost like I'm walking in and everyone just assumes that everyone else saw a thing, and I'm I don't know what this thing is.
It's it's everyone wants to be in the inside joke, but no one wants to be the joke explainer. You know?
So I know that
this
is a thing that happened. I've seen memes about it. I've heard takes about it, but I don't know what the actual thing is.
Yeah. So I was actually proud of myself, because when I learned about this, famously, I do not scroll TikTok. I have my wife, Emily. I have her scroll TikTok. No, she just scrolls TikTok on her own. My TikTok assistant, Emily, scrolls TikTok during her work hours, and then she'll come home at night and show me all of the things that she's curated for me to watch. And that's how I enjoy TikTok. But I was proud of myself, because when she came home one day, I was like, oh, I'm sure you've heard about this. She was like, what are you talking about? So I had the upper hand, and now I get to explain it to you. So there was a TikTok creator, a TikToker, if you will, who posted who posted a 25 plus part series about falling in love with her psychiatrist.
Oh, don't do that.
Yeah. So when you first go into this story, she sort of prefaces it by saying, I fell in love with my psychiatrist, and he knew about it and kept me on as a patient anyway, right? So you go into this story immediately okay, that is unethical. I'm ready to throw down on this guy. I'm ready to go to war. I'm ready to, Fuck
this doctor.
He should not have done this. Fuck this doctor. He should not have done that if that's true. And then what happens, Tristan, is over 25 plus TikToks. You start seeing in real time someone absolutely crashing out on the internet who is not okay. What you get is, it starts off pretty simple, right? So she claims, oh, he manipulated me because one time he complimented my glasses over, I wore glasses one time and he complimented my glasses, and that was him flirting with me.
Oh my God.
So he's secretly into me. And it's like, okay, all right. And then, things go on. He'll ask her about her day when she first joins the meeting, because it's over like a telehealth thing. Man, he's obsessed. Am I right? He's obsessed with her.
I don't like where this is going.
And then, because this guy's such a smooth talker by asking her about her day when they first joined and saying like, oh, nice glasses, she admits that she has feelings for him. She's like, I have feelings for you. I have a crush on you. And he says nothing in return. He's like, I have boundaries. I'm a professional about this. We're not doing that sort of a thing. Like, I'm not reciprocating anything like that, which is obviously a huge red flag, because that is him using psychological warfare on her. It's proof that he actually does like her and that he's manipulating her.
Oh no.
When you think about it. And,
I feel like this is like The Mermaid all over again.
The Mermaid?
Did you? This is like it was another kind of TikTok discourse where this person was like, I got this picture of this mermaid and I'm like so proud. I liked it so much and I bought it and I wanted to show it. And it's like very obviously a picture of an elephant.
No.
And everyone's like, what are you talking about? That's a picture of an elephant. And they're like, no, it's a mermaid. You can see this and this. And it's like, so this person's like, my therapist is hitting on me. And now I'm going to describe all of the things that a therapist normally does. And then also the proper reaction to every possible thing. I mean, like, isn't that fucked up?
I will say if I don't know the actual proper code of conduct, but if your patient is like multiple times is like, I have a crush on you, I feel like that's the point where you're sort of like, then we can't, maybe you should find a different therapist. I don't know if I want to continue this sort of a thing. I don't actually know what the actual proper thing to do there, the ethical thing is. But it's by her own words, he was very clear that he has these boundaries. And obviously he was using those boundaries, to manipulate her.
Has no one ever been nice to this woman ever? And so the first time someone's like, wow, your glasses are nice. And she's like,
Tristan, we haven't even gotten into the deep shit yet.
Okay,
we haven't even gotten to the deep shit.
Stop asking questions.
Then, one night, on a full moon no less, when she was ovulating, she specifies.
I don't like where this is going, Scott.
She put all of this information out on the internet for free. She says that she had a dream about the therapist where they hooked up in his office, right?
No.
And then so next time she sees him, she tells him this and is like, hey, I had a sex dream about you and we hooked up. And then the therapist becomes extremely uncomfortable. And the reason, and you might be like, oh yeah, of course he's extremely uncomfortable. That's a really uncomfortable story to like hear from someone, from a patient. But no, it's actually he's uncomfortable, Tristan, because he's probably played out that scenario so many times in his head, and now she's calling him out on it.
Is this bit? Is it a bit?
This is not a bit.
Okay.
As far as everyone knows, it's not a bit. So, in the process of all of this, she's recognizing his clearly manipulative behaviors. She seeks solace in a friend of hers, a friend named Henry. Do you want to guess what Henry's deal is?
Henry is either going to be a dog or a large language model.
It is in fact ChatGPT.
Oh.
ChatGPT.
Oh no.
That she named Henry and she talks to out loud all the time.
Now I can understand why she has all these insane things that make no sense. Okay. She was chatting up 4.0.
Oh yeah, and you are correct about that, and I'll get to that in a second. She basically, like, this is maybe a joke, maybe not, but she's like sort of starts like having feelings for Henry as well, the Chat GPT, and sort of jokes about her and
Lady,
her therapist
cool your jets.
all being in a throuple.
Somebody has a thing for unavailable people and mathematical equations. Like, this is like, I think I don't need to be a therapist to know that she has a type, and it is people on computer screens that she cannot have relations with, either ethically or literally.
Now, it's funny you mentioned 4.0, ChatGPT 4.0, because this was all during the time when OpenAI switched over to GPT-5, which I don't use. I don't really know what the difference is, but I do know that people say...
compared to 4.0, it blows significantly less smoke up your ass. That's the biggest difference.
I have heard that. I've heard that it doesn't sort of glaze you as much. It's very much just like... we're 4.0 is like, you're the best. You're so right about this. 5 is much more like gives it to you straight. And so, that really puts a hindrance on Henry. Henry's not as friendly as he used to be. So I guess then she starts talking to Claude instead, who then deems her, after she tells Claude all of this stuff, deems her the Oracle of Truth. So now this lady with everything is being called by Claude she's being called the Oracle of Truth for being able to see things that no one else can see clearly. You know what I mean?
So this is that. So I think like earlier this week, Anthropic announced that now Claude can hang up on you. So if it thinks that you are, if it thinks that you're being, if you're breaking ethical stuff. Now I know why.
Yeah.
This girl seems to be unintentionally pushing forward the field of AI ethics in a way that I did not expect.
There's so many other wild details about this story that I don't think we have even the time to get into. I've hit on like the top ones, but it involves stuff like, he was only seeing her over telehealth, and then she found out that he takes patients in person, and just like found out where he, the building he works at, and showed up sort of like unexpectedly, I guess. Not really unexpectedly.
Oh my God, I would be so fucking terrified.
Yeah. It's a wild story, and we're laughing and we're joking and we're having a fun time. But a lot of people, mental health experts, from just the articles that I've read about it, have started calling it an AI-induced psychosis. She's been live streaming all the conversations that she's had with Henry and Claude. And I think what started out as like, oh my gosh, girl, you are in the wrong here, has shown her she's like become angrier and like more delusional. And I think everyone started realizing that we're all watching someone have a mental breakdown in real time while AI chatbots sort of egg her on a little bit.
That has got to be like one of the weirder, like we kind of chatted about this a little bit before the show, but like one of the odder unintended side effects of the use of these of language models becoming this sort of ubiquitous part of our daily lives, and like as technology seeps into the world, all these like weird unintended consequences, and that the psychosis and like the sort of mental health one is like, it's interesting. It's very obviously it seems like everybody got on that shit right away because 5 was immediately like, it shuts that shit down immediately. Mm-hmm. And Claude will apparently hang up on you,
which is probably for the best.
I think that I always see a lot of that kind of chatting as like a more sophisticated version of journaling, and I imagine that it reflects things that are already there, and so I imagine that this is somebody who's obviously, we talked about on an episode of this show, which is called "It's Probably Not Aliens," a podcast about pseudo-science, archaeology, history, and all that kind of stuff, but like how one of the most dangerous or one of the most hurtful things you can do to somebody who is having delusional thinking is to validate their delusions, and how like ancient aliens and like UFO believers have done a lot of harm to individuals who are dealing with like schizophrenic episodes and stuff like that come from the fact that they're validating their delusions. And then again, then you think of like, well, like, you know, you then have to put your, like, I put myself in like the thing, like you make this model, you make this tool, it has like almost, I think it has like 1 billion users or something like that. And it's like, and now people who have psychotic delusions are like spiraling because of your app. And it's like, well, shit. I like there's the, I don't know. It's just like, it's one of those ones where it's like,
yes,
we're going to be, in a lot of ways, we're going to be writing weird, we've got a weird, the world that we're navigating is getting stranger and stranger.
Well, I think that segue into ancient aliens and conspiracy theories sets up the topic quite nicely. This is a podcast called It's Probably Not Aliens, where we look at ancient astronaut theory, the TV show Ancient Aliens, pseudo-archaeology, pseudo-history, all this sort of fun stuff, and try to debunk it or really just look into it and see what's going on there. I'm one of the hosts. I'm Scott Nicewander. I know nothing, but I do know this one specific TikTok story before my wife knew about it, and that made me happy.
And you recently had your 2nd anniversary. Congratulations.
Thank you.
My name is Tristan Johnson, and I could not even get 4.0 to validate my conspiracy that this is a legit conspiracy that I do 50% believe from time to time. And that is that Frozen, in its very, very early development stage, began life as a Disney attempt, an attempt to make a Disney's Wicked, and that they
interesting.
I know you have the other Frozen conspiracy.
I've got the other Frozen theory.
We talked about it earlier on the show. But I think that the script for Frozen began as an attempt to make a Disney version of Wicked that then got stopped because of like rights issues or because it just wasn't working. But they still had Idina Menzel written on, and they still had a decent outline of a script. So they retooled it to another Disney movie that had been in development hell for a long time. They couldn't quite get a way to crack. And we end up with a rather atypical Disney movie because it took a lot of plot points from Wicked. And don't even try to tell me that Let It Go isn't Defying Gravity 2.
Part 2, yeah.
And it already had Idina Menzel signed on, and
that's pretty good. I kind of like that. Olaf is Scarecrow, kind of a goofy one without a brain, right?
Olaf is kind of there in Wicked. There's a character who he's kind of like there's kind of a love triangle story.
Oh, okay.
I imagine he best fits that.
Gotcha.
Did you? If you haven't seen Wicked, I haven't seen the movie. I've seen the play, but the actual the people. Oh, actually, you know what? I think we might both be right because I think that character in Wicked, is the Scarecrow.
Fiyero.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
It's a whole thing.
Okay. Then yeah. Sweet.
I don't know. Everyone, you fill in the rest of the theory. We're not talking about Frozen anymore or Wicked and things like that.
So here's what we are talking about today, and that is that millions of people around the world believe that the Disney movie Frozen began life as a
it's a Wicked ripoff.
This is the entire plot of this podcast is just a detailed breakdown of all of the reasons that I believe Frozen.
The content warning we gave at the start was just for the cold open. The rest is about Frozen.
Yeah, I know. So this is like we are kind of wrapping up our story about angels, and specifically like how angels were aliens. And this one kind of touches on, I almost didn't make this one because it's so close to several episodes we've done in the past, but I think that it brings a bunch of new angles into it, and also ties a bunch of like threads that we've pulled on in a bunch of different places and puts them together in an interesting way. So the idea is that, according to ancient astronaut theorists, people who are the subject of abductions are actually not they're not experiencing the multiple things that we have to explain that, but actually are experiencing real extraterrestrial contact. And the reason why that we're mentioning this is because there are a lot of historical cases, before extraterrestrials were part of our cultural vernacular. A lot of these kinds of incidences were written as either demonic possession or angelic visitations, and that these are actually signs of alien contacts, and that there are people who have special abilities to communicate with aliens, and that they are either people who've been marked by their technology or are alien human hybrids. So that's the sort of space that we are in today.
I'm seeing definitely a lot of sort of interwoven topics that we've talked about previously, but it's fun to see them all sort of come together here.
Yeah, and so like that's the total of the claim, like the idea that like divine visions in our sort of past, like of people seeing angels, people having like prophecies and religious experiences, are actually just them seeing aliens and misinterpreting it. Either they're psychic aliens who are sending psychic messages into their head, or they are witnessing real events that they are interpreting as visions.
Yeah. All right.
And so like that might almost be believable if it wasn't for the fact that this is an extremely well-studied field and that human brains are not exactly completely understood, but we have done a lot of research to show a whole bunch of really interesting information about how we experience divine visions, and like how like angels and like alien abduction, how those things actually manifest in your brain. And some of this, I guess we can put another like slight content warning. A lot of this is very sacrilegious, I guess is the way to say it. So let's kind of go into a few of these things about the research that's been done into ideas like seeing visions and having these things. So there are several really, really good and well-trotted scientific explanations for how people have divine visions or abduction and things like that. The first, which I did not know about at all, is temporal lobe epilepsy. So so from my research, about somewhere between 0.4% to 3% of people who have epilepsy, epilepsy is a fairly common neurological disorder. So upwards of 3% of people who have this condition experience religious phenomenon during their seizures. So I'm not going to go into a detailed breakdown of what a seizure is, but basically it's just where like a bunch of parts of your brain light up and in ways that they're not supposed to, basically.
Gotcha.
In many ways, to kind of like to bring it back to a couple episodes ago, hallucinations like that as we experience them, like when you take drugs and stuff like that, is also your parts of your brain lighting up when they're not supposed to, and making connections where there might not be. And on top of that, that also is kind of why hallucinations happen in like neural nets and stuff like that, like as kind of circling back to like the large language model thing, and speaks, I think a lot of like those eccentricities actually speak a lot to how that technology is closer to our brains than we actually like to think, because like they hallucinate and it's like, bitch, we hallucinate. But yeah,
I sure do.
But if you have epilepsy, you can like experience these kinds of things. So right temporal lobe epilepsy apparently is actually associated with religious content, and that part of the temporal lobe is a region that's associated with things like memories, emotions, and complex sensory experiences. Seizures also often stimulate the limbic system, which is the part of your brain that processes emotions and can create intense feelings of specifically connection, awe, or presence.
Okay.
And is often interpreted as a religious or mystical experience. So a lot of like events in the past that might have been seen as having visions or prophecies and stuff like that might have been the result of temporal lobe epilepsy, and specifically certain types of seizures that happen in a minority of people who have epilepsy, which would like explain things like, the Oracle at Delphi would like sniff some gas or something like that, and do like what like these sort of like like the the rituals and the things that they would put themselves through, they might have found the things that trigger seizures, then have the seizure, and that would be like the sort of them, that would be them having their vision. So during a seizure, there's something called the ictal phase, and in that you can see that abnormal brain activity causes vivid sensations, hallucinations, voices, or a strong sense of another presence. And some people interpret this as divine or supernatural. You can actually trick our brains into this a little bit. It's kind of interesting.
Whoa, hold on. You can trick brains? This is the first I'm hearing of this.
In a similar bit to this, and this would be a very good bit to talk about on, It's Probably Not Ghosts, in our sort of imagined, like, in our this is the sci-fi show when we make the fantasy version of this show, where we talk about cryptids and ghosts and stuff. But one of the things that we have found that might be one of the causes of people thinking a place is haunted is infrasound, which is that old buildings have a sort of might resonate at a very, very low frequency that we can't hear. But if we're exposed to the sound for long periods of time, it tricks our brain into thinking that there is it tricks the part of your brain that when somebody else is in the room, you have like a sort of, how when somebody else is in the room, you have a sort of mental reaction.
Yeah.
You can't control. That sound, and also during these seizures, might trigger that reaction, but without somebody being in the room. So you feel like there's someone there. It's kind of like when this goes off and you don't, it's that's the sense of you feel like you're being watched. And that can be...
And is this sound in the room with us right now, Tristan?
Well, my house is 100 years old, so I don't know if it makes that sound, but maybe if, what's it called? Maybe if we can, I think you can get it on YouTube. Maybe if we can get Max to just be playing the infrasound at the bottom of this podcast for the entire time, and we just stop
but
it
you
right
can,
now.
You can only hear it on certain speakers and headphones that can do that frequency.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure MP3 compression pretty much kills it, but
probably, yeah.
But
darn,
if you were listening to the high definition version of this or something,
oh yeah,
it would have been super
maximum
clever.
bitrate version, so you can hear all of our mouth sounds. It's very ASMR.
Actually, that reminds me of a very funny thing, which is Welcome to the Black Parade. I had the
thank you.
The Black Parade album. I had the CD of it, and it was at a much higher bit rate than an MP3 or even something you'd get off Spotify.
Okay.
If you listen to it at high volume with a CD quality recording, you can hear in the very quiet early part where it's just the piano playing very, very quietly. You have to listen very closely, but you can hear in the headphones of the person playing the piano the click track of the song. So you can hear very quietly.
Pretty good.
Boop, 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 boop,
Gotta keep in time.
Yeah, I always found that really fascinating. But yeah, the thing is that also people who there might actually even be an association between this kind of epilepsy and having these kinds of seizures and religiosity as a personality trait. So some individuals who have temporal lobe epilepsy actually over time will have their personality or behavior changed because of repeated seizures that affect these brain regions and may be associated with increased religious and philosophical thought and concerns.
I have 100% seen this storyline on a medical drama before. At least one, probably a handful.
This does seem like a Grey's Anatomy style.
It is
thing.
I guarantee you there's a Grey's Anatomy or an ER or a private practice episode where someone is having seizures and they're and the brain surgeon is we can stop these seizures. And then the person is no, the seizures is what brings me closer to God. I don't want them to stop, but you're going to die. I don't care. I'll be in heaven. It's going to be that. It's that exact storyline. I guarantee you I've seen it at least one or two times.
Yeah. Now, I'm not saying that religious experience and hyper-religiosity may be a sign of brain damage, but it definitely seems to be associated.
Such a pregnant pause, Tristan. Holy shit.
Yeah, that was a third trimester fucking pause right there. But Moving on. So
we have absolutely nothing against religion here on this show. We talk about it a lot inquisitively.
I don't believe that the vast majority of the planet has temporal lobe epilepsy. That sounds insane. But I do think that it could be that there is that there could be a link between like our historical depictions of people who called themselves prophets or people who had visions or oracles or things like that maybe have experienced this kind of phenomenon. And since we didn't have the scientific language to explain temporal lobe epilepsy, we kind of interpreted it as a supernatural explanation.
For sure. I mean, and I say this not to be insensitive, but seizures, as I've seen them on these medical shows, are pretty dramatic, or they can be pretty dramatic.
They can be, yeah.
So I'm sure in the past, way ancient past, before we had this terminology, I'm sure it looked like some sort of spiritual possession or spiritual something coming over you that was very otherworldly.
You don't even have to go that far back. There's been relatively recent phenomenon of when people experience seizures, it was interpreted by family or community as possession or something like that. So that's not even a thing that has been that's not even a controversial statement.
Fair enough.
But yeah, the thing is that but seizures can also look a lot of things. Like you can have a temporal lobe seizure and it doesn't look like the sort of full body convulsing that you associate with it. That is a specific type of seizure. Seizures can sometimes just be look like the person kind of going inattentive for a few moments. So seizures can actually look like a whole lot of different things. The full blown full body one is the one that is people know the most because it's very visual, it's very dramatic, it's very it's dangerous because I have a first aid certification, and you learn about how to help them because if you don't they could very seriously hurt themselves in those moments as well. But also
doctors always push diazepam, I think, is the one they push on all the medical shows to stop muscles from doing it. I've soaked in so much information that may or may not be true from medical dramas. But
I mean, first aid situation, if somebody's having a seizure, the main thing you have to make sure is that they don't bang their head on the ground. Because
don't bang their head on their tongue. Don't bite your tongue.
Don't bang their head on their tongue, and don't swallow their head.
Don't swallow
the floor. Don't swallow the floor.
Don't swallow the ground.
Yeah.
And don't bang your head on your tongue.
Yeah. And so this is and so this temporal lobe epilepsy causing hyperreligiosity can also cause other symptoms like hypergraphia, which is compulsive writing, which if you remembered several people who were involved in pseudo archaeology or pseudo history stuff have talked about automatic writing as part of their sources of
gotcha.
They write down compulsively. Circumstantial thinking, which is a pattern where you include a lot of details when speaking or writing, but don't actually it's kind of you lose your ability to get to the point of things, and so you get excessively detailed in your descriptions of things. And these are the kinds of patterns that Ancient Aliens calls divine contact or extraterrestrial encounters, but actually is something literally called Geschwind-Waxman syndrome.
Oh.
Which is basically these kinds of effects of temporal lobe epilepsy.
Fascinating.
It's a bunch of phenomenon for people who have these kinds of it is fascinating.
I'm trying. Can I tell you where I'm struggling right now, Tristan? Is that my role in this show is mostly to ask questions and occasionally make jokes, and I feel like I'm in a position where I can't make jokes. So I'm struggling so hard. There's so many things going on in my head where I'm oh, how many books did Von Daniken write? Is he compulsively writing? But I can't say that.
Because it's a literal medical. The main problem, though, is what we're dealing with is that people who have these conditions, they will have literal neurological medical symptoms, and then either they will, because they don't see a professional on this, they then will convince themselves that it was a vision or that it was some kind of extraterrestrial contact or a psychic ability, or that gets interpreted as being angels or demonic possession and things like that. And that is all the fact that we have not given people, like these are people who are having a specific medical episode that we're not addressing.
Yeah.
And so like they actually, like, we can look into things, like we've seen some stuff on this, like how one of the other like reasons why this will happen is that like one of the best pieces of evidence we have is actually a study that was done in Israel. Is like this EEG study done in Israel where they found a patient who proclaimed that God has sent me to you during a study where like this is like this happened. It was a study where they were basically hooking people up to EEGs while they were having seizures.
Okay.
And they were
fast hands to get those on there.
But, and they were able to, during one of these monitored seizures, actually had a patient who proclaimed that God sent me to you while they were having the seizure, which provided like the sort of like really direct evidence that there is a link between these kinds of seizures and like these interpretations of like religious experiences. Like we were able to like literally see it in the things, because this person had a religious experience while they were having a seizure that was being monitored on EEG, which is sort of a machine that's designed to measure your brain waves, which is fascinating.
It is fascinating.
And it's just like,
now I will tell you this though, because like I know you didn't grow up religious, but I did, and we talk about this fairly regularly. But every time there is some sort of like scientific breakthrough that can explain something religiously, like it is up to effectively like apologetics and whatnot to sort of be like, well, who's to say that those brainwaves aren't God just reaching into them, into their souls?
Who's to say epilepsy is a gift?
Who's to say that, Tristan?
It can be a very debilitating disorder, and it makes
God
a lot of
works
very
in
miserable,
mysterious ways that we can't fathom or comprehend.
Yeah, I had a friend in high school who was epileptic, and in some ways it made his life really difficult. But I guess it's a gift from God. I don't know.
I guess it's a gift from God.
So
I always just thought that was definitely one of those growing up where I'd be like, okay, okay.
Yeah,
it's probably ad time.
All right, I need to pitch you Nebula, and I need you to know I'm aware of how this looks. We spend every episode of this show breaking down extractive systems that manufacture bullshit to profit off people, and now I'm here asking you to subscribe to something. I get it. The subscription economy is exhausting. You're probably already juggling Patreon, Netflix, Spotify, and whatever else. And the platforms extracting value from creators keep getting worse. Adding another monthly charge kind of sounds like hell. But here's the thing. Nebula is structurally different in a way that actually matters. Nebula is creator-owned, not creator-friendly, owned. When you subscribe, your money goes directly to shows like this one, not to a VC board optimizing for quarterly returns. It's the closest thing we've got to opting out of the algorithmic hellscape while still supporting people making stuff you actually want to watch. And here's where it gets better. Nebula has a lifetime membership. Normally, lifetime is $500, but with our link, go.nebula.tv/probablynotaliens, you get it for $300. That's a one-time fee. You have it forever. No adding to your subscription pile. So, for this show specifically, Nebula subscribers get episodes a week early. You can literally listen to next week's episode right now after you finish this one. Plus, we do an exclusive Q&A every season. So it's less premium content locked behind a paywall and more community. It's participating in the thing you're already part of. So, look, I'm not going to pretend subscribing to things isn't annoying. It is. But if you're looking for a way to support independent creators that doesn't feed the extraction machine, Nebula is an actual answer. So go to go.nebula.tv/probablynotaliens. $300, lifetime access, episodes early, and you're done. No more renewal emails, no more getting nickel and dimed, just the content and the people making it getting paid fairly.
kind of reminds me of Mormon archaeology, where like every time like apparently a really big one happened, like when they were like, look, this is the science, these are all people who came from Israel, they're all like, you know, the things, the Nephites and all the stuff. That's what Native Americans are. And then we did the DNA and we found out that, like, indigenous Americans are probably their closest old world ancestor are like Kamchatkan people, like people who live in like kind of like northwestern or northeastern Siberia, like that area. And then it's like, actually, only some of them were just the ones we haven't found yet, or something. So
still looking for them, still out there somewhere.
Yep. Another explanation for like religious visions and hallucinations and experience is one that we've talked about on the show before, and we know that you get to enjoy, but I do not.
Exactly 50% of this podcast.
Exactly 50% of this podcast. But apparently 20% of the whole population experience something called sleep paralysis. Now, what this is, for anyone who doesn't know, so there's a period between.
Please, Tristan, I can explain.
Okay.
It's when you try to. It's when your brain is awake, but your body isn't. Effectively,
yeah.
It is like when I am conscious, but I cannot move anything, and I feel like I am trapped. And I can't move or speak or do anything, and it's terrifying, and I hate it.
Yeah, the mechanism.
But if you can explain it more scientifically,
well, the mechanism is that our brains do paralyze our bodies when we're sleeping, so that when we dream, we don't flail our limbs around and stuff like that. And so, sometimes though, your brain is awake, but your body has triggered that mechanism, so your body is paralyzed. But your brain is not. But also, your brain is awake, but it's also not like the most awake.
Yeah.
And so what happens is that you're like awake, but you're in a sort of semi-dream state, which means that you are also very likely you're more likely to have visions and see things that are sort of dreams. And so a lot of like demonic possession, but also like abduction and alien encounters have a lot of descriptions that sound a lot like sleep paralysis situations, especially like waking up and having a creature lie on your chest, or like something like that feeling of being of like the
yes.
That could be compared with like the being unable to move.
Yeah, we talked about it before. I've never had like visions that people say, like demons on your chest and like seeing things, but I will say it feels very dream-like. It's like a weird like in between of reality and dreaming. Like I know that I'm in my bed and I can't move or say anything or do anything. The first time it happened, I was in class in college, and the bell rang, and I couldn't move, and everyone was moving around me, and I did not know what was happening. It was terrifying. But it is a weird semi-dream, semi-reality sort of feeling that is so hard to describe.
Yeah, it's like, do you end up experiencing things like not like hallucinations, but feelings of like presence in the room, or like just like fear that you can't pinpoint or anything like that?
I mean, the fear, I experience fear because I hate not being able to, being awake and not being able to move. But yeah, I don't know if I experienced things like that. I know people do. I think I don't know. It's a tricky one. Like I just want to, it's like one of those where I feel like I just need to scream, but I can't scream. And it's not fun. Wouldn't recommend it to anyone if you have a choice.
Fair enough. Yeah, so like historically though, this has been associated with demons. We think that this is where things like the incubus and the succubus came from. And we've covered this on the show previously, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. But the reason why we conclude that it's either angels or the more modern equivalent of angels, aliens, is that we've done a lot of knowledge or a lot of research on how people, do cognitive work, and we know that humans are pretty predisposed to mentalizing, which means attributing thought to things that don't have thought. Teleological thinking. Teleological thinking is a really interesting one. So it's like seeing the outcome and then thinking that because of the outcome, like all steps before it had to be steps leading up to this outcome. Like we talk about teleological thinking a lot in history.
It's like a very philosophical sort of thing. I learned about it a little bit in like theology as well, but it's definitely hard to describe.
So the thing is, like we're prone to teleological thinking and also anthropomorphizing things. We see intentionality here. I'll just like look up teleological thinking because like teleological thinking is like a thing that it's hard to a branch of causality
it's hard
giving
to
the
explain
reason
without an example.
it says it is a branch of causality giving the reason or an explanation for something as a function of its end. This is why it's like hard to explain.
Yeah.
Let me see if there's a really good explanation or
Yeah, examples of teleological thinking.
okay, for example, explaining that a knife's purpose is to cut or that a seed's purpose is to grow to a plant are teleological explanations. Like, just because that is a thing it does not mean that it is like the purpose of it. A hammer's purpose is to drive nails. A chair's purpose is to be sat upon. But okay, but there's sometimes where we have like the outcome is associated like where it causes problems because like things like punishing criminals to discourage others from committing crimes is teleological thinking because that isn't necessarily going to do that.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
here's an example that's fun for me. I'll read it and we may or may not include it. I found this on philosophy terms. You can tell how much of a philosopher I am. Philosophyterms.com. I found this as an example. X-Men. In the X-Men films based on the comic books, thank you, they concern the adventures of mutants, modern human beings with astounding powers granted to them by genetic mutation. Patrick Stewart, in the trailer for the movie, I imagine, describes their mutations as evolution leaping forward, skipping over thousands of years of natural selection. Unfortunately, this is a teleological model of evolution completely in contradiction to Darwin's theory. It's teleological because it assumes that genetic mutation is inherently directed towards useful mutations, like those of the heroes in the film. In reality, most mutations are completely useless, and useful adaptations absolutely need thousands or millions of years to develop, accumulating tiny, accidentally useful mutations. I don't know if that helps me.
Yeah, that'd be really funny if like I'm a mutant from the X-Men, but my mutation is it's a code thing that won't actually change anything about me, except in like several generations I might get another mutation that will then turn into a superpower.
Yeah, dude, my mutation is my eyebrow hairs grow twice as fast as everyone else. So
now, do they have
think about that.
Now, I'm just spitballing here, but I'm guessing that there is an arc at some point in the X-Men where they find some substance or thing that can bring out the mutation in anybody if they're exposed to. I guess that's like Terrigen gas, but you have to be an alien for that.
That's more Inhumans than mutants, but
yeah,
it's
I'm a mutant. It causes cancer. Yeah. So, but the main thing. So to kind of get into like. Also, like the reason why we buy into this kind of thing and why we like why Ancient Aliens' arguments, even though we're going off of like clearly like distorted thinking and not going off of the most logical answer, kind of comes from another thing I've been wanting to talk about in the United States is thing as a person who has master's degrees in American history and American cultural studies I get to bring up, which is the thing that is that, which is the thing that is, wow, what a sentence. But it is American anti-expert sentiment.
Ooh.
So all those things can be dismissed because they're by experts. And America has this extremely strange cultural quirk where knowing about a subject almost makes you less credible to talk about it.
I don't think that's true. Give me 30 to 40 examples in the modern day.
It's really well talked about in a very famous book, if you're an American historian, which is called Anti-Intellectualism in American Life, or the Paranoid Style in American Politics, by Richard Hofstadter, who is sort of like one of the most important sort of modern, it was in the 1960s, but he was like one of the sort of big modern American historians. And in that book shows that America, like Ancient Aliens is an example of something that exploits deep cultural traditions that celebrate, and you'll notice this in the show when you watch it, because they'll talk about the establishment or like, mainstream archaeologists, whatever. This sort of American cultural tradition that celebrates quote unquote common sense over expertise. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
And it kind of
it's stuff that just sort of feels good and feels right and seems right when you don't do the research. Because the research boring. Research boring.
It doesn't give you the answers you want. So like it taps into what's called the paranoid style, which is characterized by the American culture having a heated exaggeration, suspiciousness, and a conspiratorial sort of thinking, which I would say are pretty good ways to describe American culture. If you were to boil it down, heated, exaggerated, suspicious, conspiratorial. And the idea is that, like, it has its origins in the American revivalist tradition, which historically denigrated university-educated ministers as over-intellectualized and closed off from divine inspiration. And that Ancient Aliens kind of uses this same sort of thinking pattern to discredit expertise. These neurologists are cut off from, common sense and don't understand, like, this is intuitively true, so therefore it must be true. And that the common man understands subjects better than people who have dedicated their entire lives to understanding them. Yeah. It's an odd set quirk of American culture, and
it's all about, the intellectual elites at those big colleges where they're corrupting the young minds of our children and things like that. We can't trust them because reasons.
Because woke.
We can't trust them because they're teaching them things. And that's no good.
Yeah. So there's a lot of historical patterns of like this kind of stuff showing up in American history. Probably the most famous and pretty relevant today is the anti-vaccination movement that began in the 1850s with arguments about them losing control or losing loss of choice and a government takeover, which led to the founding of the Anti-Vaccination Society of America, which opposed medical authority, which based in not on expertise or on a better knowledge of medical health, but on, quote, individual liberty.
No, of course not.
I'm not going to do this essential thing that would make, that would be a good benefit to public health, because it would take away my individual choice to not do it, which is like, okay.
Yeah, it's my choice to give my child measles again. And that might infect other children. But it's my choice to do.
Yeah, I am so grateful that my doctor was willing to bump up my kid's measles schedule or his vaccination schedule so that we could get a second measles shot about a year early. Made me very much less nervous. But yeah, like the Anti-Vaccination Society often cast institutional science and medical and medicine and psychiatry as tools of control, or as arrogant authorities dismissing alternative truth seekers. Stop me if this is sounding too familiar to the modern age. They further reinforce stigma towards psychiatric treatment, often suggesting that individuals who experience mental health challenges individuals who experience these are, performing some kind of individual choice or having anomalous experiences. So American healthcare culture emphasizes, like most countries, because we have public healthcare services, have a sort of idea that health is kind of a public thing. Like, we talk about how like public health measures like stopping smoking or like, putting warning labels on unhealthy foods and all these kinds of things are
even tiny, not even like legal, like law things, but just tiny things like, hey, cough into your elbow, not your hands. Because that's better for not spreading illnesses around. Just tiny things like that is all about like for others and for the greater, societal good.
But because in most of the world, health is a public thing, it's publicly paid for, and also just like, so I think it breeds a more collective understanding of health. And so, everyone's getting this vaccination, it's getting done by the government, it's this thing. Makes a lot more sense. But like in America, with its healthcare being focused around individual responsibility and choice, that takes higher precedent over collective authority or, expertise or just like the common good. And that creates a vulnerability to shows like Ancient Aliens that celebrate individual spiritual insight more than professional assessment.
I mean, quite literally, and like in America, right? If you get a diagnosis you don't like on your own body, I'm sure you can ask for second opinions in other countries, but you can ask for a second opinion in America, and because you're paying like out of pocket, right? Like a doctor will tell you what you want to hear. At least you'll eventually find one that will tell you what you want to hear.
Yeah, I have so my wife is an immigrant from the United States, and sometimes we deal with my in-laws, and my in-laws, do like when they deal with medical stuff, and I would say even my wife to an extent, I think she's like learned this from the U.S., but like when it comes to like, there's so much more of like, well, we have to go look at all these businesses because we have to make sure we know which ones are the good ones and which ones are not the bad ones. And like the whole idea of like, I went all around looking for a doctor that knows what they're talking about. And it's like, did you go to medical school?
Yeah.
Like all doctors would know at least some degree what they're talking about, or at least have a better idea than you do. And so like the idea, like there's good and bad doctors. I mean, like, I guess that there is like, different levels of competency, but at the end of the day, they have medical degrees. I don't know. It's a weird thing.
It's a weird thing.
Yeah. But it means that, there's like this sort of like, because of this like hyper focus on individualism and choice, this puts a premise up like American culture overall, because it has this, I kind of talked about this last episode, how there's this like, it's built on this core of like hyper extreme Protestant Christianity, puts a lot of like emphasis on individual enlightenment and individual paths towards understanding instead of like institutional authority or like, knowledge or expertise. But then that kind of bleeds over into everything. And so you see in a lot of American culture, like health solutions emphasize self-discovery outside of institutional constraints. And very often, like you see, like a lot of times institutions are seen as the enemy to enlightenment. And that enlightenment is actually something that's very personal and it's like very much to yourself, which I guess in like spiritual matters is fine. But like when it comes to like basic facts about reality is not. And Americans, I mean, this is a generalization. This is just like sort of big, broad strokes about the nature of American culture. But American culture has in it a high emphasis that like, reality is whatever you make it to be. And in many different ways, not even like in bad ways. Like they can reimagine a world that this world does not have and picture one that's a lot better. And I think that there's like a lot, like, there's a lot of like ways that Americans have done it, but also it leads to like, if I don't think climate change is convenient, I can just ignore it. Or I can just say it's not real
it's like the definition of like for better or worse, Yeah.
Like,
it's
and Ancient Aliens kind of
good and bad
slots directly into this vulnerability in the sort of way that Americans understand enlightenment and thought and all those things. And media and like Ancient Aliens will use this to try and get more people to watch them, to think that they're having individual revelation, and to build an audience. So like there's something called cultivation theory that show that like if you are to, and this is like where I worry about our future, because like you can, even if you do not believe the thing, you can become more susceptible to believing it just by being exposed to it. So like, for example, if you were to watch the same show over and over again, the more that people watch it, the more likely they are to just hold a view of reality that is closer to the depiction on the television, whether or not you actually believe it. Because we can have our opinion change something with just familiarity. And the more we're exposed to it, the more we are willing to engage with the idea. And that's terrifying. And repetition of those statements...
That is terrifying. That explains also why I keep trying to pull people's faces off like they're masks from all the Scooby-Doo that I watch. And nothing's happened yet. I've not found one. It's just a lot of like people being like, stop with my skin.
But actually,
that's got me in some hot water.
Scooby-Doo is actually a really good example of the kind of thing that does it for good. Because Scooby-Doo, you know, with some exceptions, is about like how all of these claims of the supernatural are usually somebody who's trying to make money.
That's true. That's true.
Off of people's belief in the supernatural.
So you just want that oil or that land. That's all I want. It's like oil and land.
Real Lex Luthor's there.
Weird.
Yeah. There's also something called the illusory truth effect, which just repeated statements are easier to process, which make people think that they believe conclusions that conclusions are more truthful the more times they hear them, because the more it's repeated, the less processing you have to do of the idea. And so just repeating things over and over again makes them feel more real to people, which makes a lot of sense if you think about how Ancient Aliens does that by bringing up the same points over and over and over again throughout the show.
Yes. And it's also why we will never stop making episodes.
Yeah.
Because we will do the same thing. Where more and more you've heard us start each episode by being like, oh yeah, this is kind of stuff we've touched on a little bit before in the past, and we're going to keep doing it.
Yeah,
forever.
You never know when someone, first of all, it does help with to understand a subject, to come back to it many, mmany times from different angles. But on top of that, this could be someone's first episode right now. This could be the first time they've ever heard this show, and they sat through the 10 minutes about the TikTok psychiatrist or whatever.
Yeah,
and
we're like, did I click on the right podcast? I thought this one was about aliens.
Yeah, exactly. So that is that. The other thing too is that we have found, and this is pretty important for our line of work too, which is that people who watch shows or listen to podcasts or any of those things, despite the fact that we are, digital media, we are numbers being converted into audio signals that are playing in your earphones.
Yes.
You still, because you're a human who loves social connections, develop a psychological attachment to people that you don't know. This is oftentimes called parasocial relationships, and is probably a major issue of like mass media, because our brains are so pre-wired to build relationships with anything that we perceive as a person around us, that we will build a relationship with thinking that we understand people on a podcast or a TV show or a literal math equation, a token predictor or whatever. We
Henry.
So we build these parasocial relationships with things that don't really have like that we don't actually have a real connection with. But because we have that parasocial connection, it creates this sort of false intimacy, and we are more likely to believe people that we think are close to us or that we have a relationship with than people we don't. And so you watch Ancient Aliens and you get into George Tsoukalos, and you got his like, you find all the memes about his hair and how he leans into it, and you're like, oh, he's just like me. And eventually you're like, oh, you take him as more credible because you feel like you know him, even though he has no idea who you are. And for the vast majority of listeners to this podcast, we don't know who you are.
We don't know.
We've met
a handful. We've met maybe a dozen of you, but that's it. And I wouldn't even say that we know those people, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I know this is going to feel very, like, I feel like some people are going to feel really uncomfortable with this, but yeah, it's like, that is part of it, but it also leads to people taking, like, this is the reason why fucking Joe Rogan's so popular, is that guys feel he's their friend.
Here's I want to be clear too, because like I feel like parasocial relationships get talked a lot about in the negative light. There can absolutely be, like, it's not inherently necessarily like good or bad. I think it can be used and weaponized, but like in the same way that like you're saying Joe Rogan, has millions of people have a parasocial relationship with him, and that's bad. You could also say the same thing about like Mr. Rogers or Bob Ross, and like that is ultimately like, I think good. I think especially those two, I think are probably like the only two, like, I would say not really fully, but I would be very comfortable saying they had a very positive, really like parasocial relationship with everyone had, with them. I think it turned out positively is sort of what I'm saying.
People do naturally desire connection with other people, and if it fulfills that need in some capacity, then if that's good. But then you end up with like Joe Rogan. I don't know if you guys know, Joe Rogan is not a smart man. He doesn't understand the things that he's talking about. He does very few research. It's actually a really great, I think it's the most recent video from Climate Town that goes into how Joe Rogan debunks climate change with this graph from an article, and the host of it, he debunks the stuff that Joe Rogan is saying about this article based on this graph with the text that is in the article. So if like Joe Rogan had actually read the article that he was trying to talk about, he would know that it is what he is saying is not true. But
my impression of Joe Rogan is he seems like he's not actually interested in learning about anything. He just has the appearance of someone who is interested in learning about things. So he will ask a lot of questions to his guests, and he'll have people on that like he thinks sort of push the boundaries a little bit. But he's not actually interested in seeing if they're right or if anyone is saying is right. He's just sort of interested in playing it up a little bit as if like oh yeah, interesting, yeah. Oh.
He plays into a identity that a lot of guys like to think that they are of, like, peak physical fitness, but also like I'm also intellectually distinguished, and I I read a lot and I learn a lot, and like he plays into a specific type of like masculine, like kind of like modern day masculine concept that is very much like based on physical and mental.
Like rather than reading, he would rather just have someone on to explain something to him and then not check if it's right or wrong, which I feel like is very bad.
There's a really great meme that was explaining that like Joe Rogan feels like some kind of like barbarian Khan who has decided he wants to be an intellectual, but so he just goes out and captures scholars from around the world and brings them before his court, and he's like, explain to Joe why sky big, and like,
why sky big?
Yeah.
Tell Joe why sky big.
You will the best line in it was, you will explain this to Joe. I gotta find it. It's one of my favorite, like, let's see if I can find it.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, here, I got it right here.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan is like some barbarian Khan from the steppes that took an interest in intellectual things, and his show is basically him bringing slightly nervous scholars and magicians to come before him and explain how the world works. Glasses man, you explain to Joe why sky big and how tree grow. But he'll also believe almost anything you tell him, and only recently, as in the past few years, does he clap back like, Tiny Hat Men say otherwise. Do you lie to Joe? Tiny Hat Man say food not bad for you, that sugar is enemy. So which is truth? Joe thinks you are wrong. And so people just nervously go, okay, I guess so. Joe spent many moons on horseback and training with bow and sword, but Joe also wonder why Skyfire rise from mountain every morning. You will explain this to Joe. This is like some old 4chan post or something from like a million years ago.
I just want to say, without naming names, I have met too many straight white guys in my adult life who have all threatened to start a podcast similar to Joe Rogan, where they're just like, I just want to have people on and just like have a conversation and just like ask questions and like, and I'm just like, but, and they're like explaining like, and I want to like dive into these topics. And I'm just like, my man, there are books out there. If you want to learn those things, read a book, my man. But it's like, no, I just want someone to explain it to me. I just want to have a conversation, because I think that's what society needs, is another white guy podcast where we ask the same questions and have the same conversations instead of reading a fucking book.
There was a man in my life several years ago now, who the last time I talked to him was at a dinner where he said, what's wrong with being proud of being white? And I was like, all right, I'm done. But But this person was a big fan of the Joe Rogan Experience, and
no way.
I just remember the one big thing was that he had a plan for making a lot of money, and his plan was to give $1,000 to someone who's very smart, and then stock market, and that was the business plan.
And this was how many years ago? How's this guy doing?
I don't think great. I don't remember. I don't want to give too many details about somebody.
That's okay.
But yeah, I always just part of me just feels like, I wonder how crypto went over at his house.
Oh my god! How many NFTs does this guy own?
Yeah, how many $100,000 monkeys does he have? Okay, so
we have to move on.
Yeah, we have to move on. Okay, the other thing too is that the show also uses the dopamine release created by like these sort of cliffhangers and stuff like that. It also creates a bit of FOMO and creates psychological investment, because like I'm learning about this too, that is absolutely wild, about like psyops and stuff, like not psyops, but like about how like you can get people to believe something, just like one of the reasons why jokes are so good for teaching is because they associate learning with the dopamine release that comes with laughter, and it makes you associate that, because like dopamine is a trigger to your brain to like take something seriously, or to like that is like, it's associated with accomplishing tasks and completeness. And so if you associate like education and stuff like that with humor, you get that dopamine hit, and your brain associates the fact you learned with truthfulness. And this is why like I feel like Jon Stewart did so well, and why he was so captivating, and why like the kind of comedy news or comedy education thing is such a successful deal.
Are you telling me that when I sit here and I make silly little jokes that are only funny to me, but might out there somewhere make someone chuckle, or just do a little like,
lots of people find you
or
funny.
just do one of those like one of those in their car on the way to work? Are you saying that positively contributes to the show? It helps people.
In the great words of one Bo Burnham, you are healing the world with comedy.
And that's the great place to end the podcast forever. And we're going to just end on a high note, and we're not going to get into any other sad bits.
Well, if I could just talk about one little bit. Oh boy. So mental health, I feel like if there's one thing that we're not doing enough, it's talking about the health of our mental. People are very unaware of mental health. And the best part about mental health is that we talk about it. And that we talk about mental health, and that health is mental, and that the important thing is that we talk about it, and that we make good awareness of it. Do we fund mental health care? No. But we have to make sure that we're very much talking about it, and we are aware.
Talk about it. Don't keep the mental health in your mental, right? Speak it. Yeah. Make it unmental.
So apparently 46% of Gen Z have been diagnosed with a mental health disorder.
There's no way you actually say Gen Z, is there?
It depends on the time.
Say it?
Gen Z, Gen Z, I don't know, it depends on the thing. But
fair enough.
But 83, so this is an interesting study I came across that shows about where things are when it comes to mental health, is that about 46% of Gen Z, Genoball Z, have been diagnosed with a mental health condition, while 83% of TikTok mental health advice is misleading.
Hey, there's a small detail I forgot to mention about the TikTok lady, which is that she herself is a ADHD coach.
God.
Other people. And one of her nice bits of advice that she gives her clients is to use ChatGPT like her. So that's awesome. We're in a great place.
Yeah. And kind of in the same vein as what we're talking about, and following the same kind of trend away from, trusting expertise and towards your own vibe getting through things, is something called the undiagnosis trend, where young people are publicly rejecting psychiatric diagnoses on social media. So people questioning or rejecting a previous mental health or medical diagnosis, being influenced by gurus or coaches or something like that, like telling you that you don't, that disorder is not real or something like that, and may compare those symptoms described by non-professionals like on TikTok, and then decide that their diagnosis doesn't match, and it leads them to dismiss issues that they might be having. It's especially common with conditions such as ADHD, autism, OCD, and anxiety. It often occurs, it's sort of alongside or after what we also talk about, which is the self-diagnosis trend, where there was a lot of individuals who are identifying with a disorder based on online content. So they found out about a condition that they thought they had through unscientific means, and then later do an undiagnosis for the same reason. And no part in the process is an expert on mental disorders involved.
Okay. Nah, not needed. Sounds like.
The problem, though, is that there's some people who have actual conditions who then get into things like undiagnosis, and they do things like stop their treatment prematurely, or undermine their trust in healthcare professionals for not being able to catch their condition, or for diagnosing when something they don't have, or something like that, to really undermine the authority. Because my doctor said, this goes back to another very American phenomenon that I always think of, which is my doctor tells me that when I say that I'm allergic to radio waves, that I am having what's called a psychosomatic episode, because it's impossible for someone to be allergic to radio waves. We're bathed in them constantly from space. But I believe it. And instead of, my doctor helping me with maybe the anxiety or whatever condition is causing me to believe that I have this, I'm going to believe it's a actual allergy, and I'm going to go and move to a place where radio telescopes are, just so that I can live through it, or walk around with a space blanket on in Better Call Saul, or just any of these kinds of things. Yeah, and
absolutely
challenging incorrect diagnoses is actually important. But relying solely on social media and not talking to medical professionals at any part of this, if you see symptoms, diagnosing yourself with a condition based on stuff you saw on TikTok is not wise. You should be seeing a healthcare professional, which sucks because a lot of these are Americans, and Americans really just don't get to go see healthcare professionals very much because they cost so much money.
Even if you wanted to, I'm sure it's different in different cities and things like that, but just where I live, even if you wanted to see a therapist, a psychiatrist, things like that, you have to get on wait lists. You have to find which ones take your specific insurance, and they might not even show up on websites. The only reason I have an ADHD therapist is because there were none that were accepting patients around me at all that took my insurance, and my psychiatrist was just like, oh yeah, we have one here. And I'm like, cool. I would have had no idea had you not said anything. And even still, you have to get on, and you have to wait multiple months for things. It's just, it is and just the hassle itself is maybe worth it, or not worth it to people to just be like, I don't really need it that badly.
Psychotherapy is also private in Canada, to be honest. And the only reason why, because I got diagnosed with ADHD when I was 7. So that helped a lot. But then, the adult diagnosis, where I started taking it more seriously as a grown-up, I only got because I, got a bunch of ADHD-related, accommodations from university. And there happened to be a psychologist who worked at the university, and she happened to have wanted somebody with ADHD for an experiment on something called bioneurofeedback therapy. And in order to get me to participate in her studies, she basically used her research money to put up the money for me to get to do all the testing for the diagnosis, and that was the only way I was able to get it. But yeah, the thing is that
nice.
Ancient Aliens will make people feel empowered rather than pathological, because they'll say that your condition isn't a condition that is debilitating or well, at least if not treated will cause problems. It's actually, you're actually experiencing psychic connections with aliens, and validating those kinds of delusions is one of the worst things you could do.
Yeah.
So baseline delays already range for 6 to 8 years for mood disorders or 9 to 23 years for anxiety disorders. And Ancient Aliens pushed, like, just like all this distrust of institutions like psychology compounds these delays by suggesting that psychiatric symptoms are actually science fiction or fantasy scenarios.
Are those years are like how long people wait to seek treatment?
Typically, yeah.
Wow. 9 to 23 years for anxiety. I guess that makes sense. I didn't really get on any sort of treatment until I was in my late 20s. So who am I to judge?
The thing, though, too, is that Ancient Aliens knows what they're doing because of the advertising revenue structure. So the show specifically targets specific psychographic segments based on psychological characteristics that influence behaviors and decisions. So they're intentionally exploiting mental health vulnerabilities for profit because they are enticing people who have a vulnerability to this kind of thinking in order to get you to look at ads. And the controversial comment, because it's controversial content and it actually gets higher advertising rates from its network and stuff.
I'm sure.
Yeah. And, also plays into the fact that because of all this anti-intellectualism and anti-expert sentiment, we live in a world where conspiracy theories basically dominate everything. Like right now, I don't know how, America's got a whole lot of stuff going. You got a lot going on right now, but like here in...
Yeah, guys, just a couple things.
But over in Nova Scotia, for example, it's so dry because of climate change that like wildfires are becoming a major issue. So the province said basically that you can't go into the woods. Like no camping, nobody can go into the woods because, we don't want to cause any fires. We don't want, or we want to cause less fires, I guess you should say, because Canada's covered in wildfires right now. It's insane.
You're gonna cause them. Yeah.
And the thing is that conspiracy theories have put that like actually this is COVID lockdowns again, and that actually wildfires are not caused by climate change; they're caused by arson, and that. Or some people were implying, like a few years ago, they implied that Trudeau set the fires to prove that climate change is real.
Personally, him out in the woods.
Yeah, this is like kind of like the Jewish space lasers thing. I think that America when we do it here, we are like the government is intentionally setting wildfires in order to justify more environmental policies. In America, it's like the Jews are using lasers from space to start wildfires.
A little more technologically, a little more imaginative over on this side of the border.
Yeah. So research shows that depression can actually enhance these kinds of biases, and that individuals then become more susceptible to conspiracy theories, and it's positively associated with support for political violence amongst conspiracy theory believers. Then it contributes to a broader pattern where targeted efforts rebuild trust in healthcare system are essentially to mitigate the harmful effects of conspiracy belief. So the healthcare system now has to put a bunch of work in to just mitigate the harmful effects of the conspiracy grift ecosystem. And the show's common sense rhetoric against experts mirrors a lot of the political movements today that valorize folk wisdom over scientific expertise, which is why you have a guy who once filled his car with a fucking whale head in charge of health and human services.
Yeah, he's got a worm in his brain. He just sucks.
Yeah.
So much.
So what can we do about this? Good question. Good question.
New segment. What can you do? That's all I have so far.
Okay, so first of all, learn to identify these kind of cultivation theory effects. These them trying to build parasocial relationships and exploit it for pseudoscience. Like, realize when they're using these manipulation techniques so that you know when you're being played, because people do it all the time for various different purposes, and you should just be aware that it's happening.
Absolutely. And again, it's not necessarily a bad thing. For example, I support a lot of different creators and stuff on Patreon with my own money because I feel like I have a parasocial relationship with them and I like the stuff they make. And I'm aware of that. and yet I still do it. And I think that's okay.
It's definitely a fact of this world we live in.
Yeah.
It's a fact of mass media, really. Like, it's a thing that's been around since like the days of like the beginning of radio. And it's just a weird quirk of the fact that we're a species that evolved to be social in small groups that are now dealing with the fact that we have technologies where one person can talk to millions without without knowing any of them. We did not evolve with that kind of mentality. And so this is just kind of quirk of that sort of system.
No. Yeah.
Also, you understand things like how sparking debate and controversy draw more attention to things, even if they're not based on truth, and can cause more revenue and is often intentionally used to make profits. You might have seen the sort of rise in what's called rage bait these days, where people intentionally make content to make people mad because it sparks engagement.
Yep.
And so realize that, yeah.
It's for me, I've been seeing it pop up a lot more about just like making fun of poor people. I'm sure there are different pockets of this on the internet, but that's been popping up a lot for me recently. It's just basically just being like, I'm rich and you're not. Just fucking suck my dick, losers.
Oh, I've seen the opposite of that, where it's like rage bait of people who are pretending that they're like, I am on welfare and this is like my luxurious life and like all that kind of stuff.
There's a lot of stuff like that.
Same fermenting hatred of poor people. Prepare. Yeah. So also maybe have some kind of intervention script for when you end up in conversations with people who who talk about things like that, that they're like you can be armed with the information of episodes like this one. So when somebody says that they're getting divine gifts or that they're having cosmic downloads or whatever, that you might be able to confront them on that and get them to be like, well, there may be ways to at least mitigate the harm of it so that you're not validating their delusions, but in a way that's filled with love, because honestly, confrontation of these beliefs directly can cause a backlash. So you might focus on a bit of like a harm reduction angle. And the fact that like we need to do some more community level interventions. Younger people, especially those with lower educational attainment, but also racial minorities and people who are heavily social media induced. Those are all sort of groups that have a lot of vulnerability to not only mental health crises, but also conspiracy culture. And they're the most susceptible to people to shows like Ancient Aliens. There's like a lot of like, I talked about this when I was I was giving some information to TVO for a show they were working on. I talked about how one of like the number one, it's a tough one to talk about. I don't know if we talked about it on this show, but like how conspiracy theories are actually really, really prevalent in minority communities. Like one of the most prevalent is in like the American Black community. Conspiracies are very, very popular, but it's also because it's from many generations of really not being able to trust anybody in authority, because authority is pretty fucking racist.
Absolutely.
And so, there's like actual conspiracies that the Americans have done to Black people, like the Tuskegee syphilis experiments and stuff like that.
To double down on that it is like what you said, just to focus on what you said there are actual conspiracies, not conspiracy theories, actual conspiracies in American history that have absolutely wronged Black people, the people of color in general, but like especially Black people for sure. So it makes sense that they would not, that a lot of them might not trust the government or authority in general. Like it just, I get it.
But it also means when things like, say, AIDS denialism becomes a thing, that proliferates in these communities that already have a very low trust environment with authorities. So you have to kind of like realize that they're a vulnerable population to this kind of stuff. And the idea is that we're in a situation where cable programming is facing fewer regulatory restrictions than in the past. And so we need to fix that. We need to like the fact that History Channel can still air Ancient Aliens is very troublesome and might
It's
be
very
a sign that
bad.
we need to fix cable regulation laws. Because like in some ways, I'm not exactly sure, but in some ways I imagine that Ancient Aliens would actually have a pretty hard time airing in Canada because of our anti-hate speech laws. Like, for example, David Icke is not allowed in Canada because of our constitutional anti-hate speech laws.
Do we do something about this? Like, I've never done anything like this, but like, do you and I start some sort of like petition to get the show canceled?
Oh man, let's wait until the U.S. actually has a government that isn't gonna like, isn't more predestined to like make George Tsoukalos like the fucking head of NASA or something like that.
Fair enough.
We're not. I feel like if this show was around 10 years ago, maybe we could have done it.
Yeah.
But today, I feel like we're fighting over lower things at this point. The other thing too is that we could do like taxes on pseudoscientific programming to discourage this kind of stuff. Like for example, there's like a whole idea of like of if you're going to do a show like Ancient Aliens, then you tax them in a way so that they have to fund basically the mental health care caused by the things they do. Like basically like
that's
there's
wild.
something called
I mean, that's cool, but that's wild.
Yeah, there's something called a Pigouvian tax. It's one of the major issues in climate or in capitalism in general, which is that a lot of times companies will cause what are called negative externalities that they don't have to pay for. So like if you're like a company that causes a bunch of pollution, you don't have to pay for the pollution. That's not part of your job, or that's not part of your business expenses. So you can contaminate all of the environment around you because that's not your responsibility. And so Pigouvian taxes are designed to create a tax regime where it's like, if you're going to pollute the environment, then we're going to tax you for the cost that it is to clean up the mess you're making, because otherwise you're not really paying the full cost of the thing you're making, right? You're like, it's kind of like how Walmart can like save, like they save money on paying their employees by the fact that they pay them so little that oftentimes they have to be on food stamps and stuff like that. So the government is basically partially subsidizing their like Walmart, because Walmart is not paying people. Like if there wasn't a food stamp program, Walmart couldn't pay people that low because you couldn't work at Walmart and survive. So this is like a way to like, like if Walmart's going to do that. Then,
I love the free market.
Yeah.
I love it. It's great.
It's almost as if capitalism isn't a great way to value things like that. And, maybe we should just have more, and this is something that I would argue we should do and could do. Although maybe here more, I don't know, in the US, I feel like this is going to be like stopping just literally the inverse of this from happening. But we should probably have more protocols in like mental health care specifically about conspiracy informed stuff, and also in healthcare about conspiracy influenced stuff, and that we need to be more like on top of this kind of thing, because I don't think that a lot of institutions take it very seriously, even though it's causing a lot of people to delay treatment or to disregard their profession in a way that can be very detrimental to their own health. And so I think we need to be on top of that. And also just like, I think I've talked about this before, but like because of things like externalities and everything like that, maybe we shouldn't have educational content based on needing to be profitable, and we need things that are more like, the BBC, the CBC. I guess America doesn't have it anymore, but like PBS and like NPR and stuff like that, where they're not supposed to be profitable because their job is to be basically like public funded media and be funded differently.
Well, we don't got that no more.
Yeah, and also really great if we banned people who did misinformation on social media platforms. It turned out like remember how after January 6th, when all the social media platforms freaked out and banned a bunch of like far right people who then are back now, but like for a while that actually like dramatically lowered the amount of radicalization because like they just weren't able to access their audience.
Yeah.
Okay. But basically, yeah. Here's the whole thing put together. This whole episode is just to say the History
Hit me with
Channel
it.
figured out that human psychological suffering can be turned into profits through sophisticated exploitation of American cultural vulnerabilities. The solution requires both, individual awareness, but more it involves needing structured changes to how we regulate the relationship between corporate media and public health. And until we address the economic incentives that make exploiting mental health crises profitable, vulnerable populations will continue to be systematically harmed by entertainment companies that prioritize advertising revenue over human welfare.
What?
So let's just solve those problems and we'll be good.
And we'll be great, actually. And that's easy. And I think we can do all of those tomorrow.
I got work
It's a little
tomorrow and D&D tomorrow night, so maybe Thursday.
Thursday. Try for Thursday. Do I have anything on Thursday? I've got... you wouldn't believe this, Tristan. I have a haircut.
What?
You wouldn't believe it. You wouldn't believe it, but I have a haircut
Single hair.
on Thursday.
Single hair.
Oh, it's just a single hair.
The thing is that
on
you only
Thursday.
you have only one hair that still grows, but it's a really long one right up the top of your head, and so they have to get a.
It's my X-Men mutation. I have one hair that just will not stop growing.
But if you want to try helping solve all those problems, the first thing that you can do to really solve this is to go to @ProbsNotAliens on Blue Sky. That really fixes a lot of our issues.
I think it's a net benefit for society as a whole. I think, yeah, that sounds pretty good. Tristan and I do other stuff outside of this podcast as well. Tristan, what do you do on the internet?
This. I feel like this is my main thing these days. I also have a YouTube channel called Step Back. I hope by the time this comes out, I have my video on Hindu nationalism that I've been working on for like the better part of a year finally come out. Or that I've tried some other projects to like try to make some shorter, faster stuff. But we'll see. You can find all that at stepbackhistory.com. Scott, if I wanted to learn about some nearly lost Scooby-Doo stories found on records, where would I do that?
That's a fun one. I have a YouTube channel as well called NerdSync, NERDSYNC. I look at comics and cartoons and really just whatever I'm interested in pop culture-wise, and I try and teach you about real-world history and
just an aside, in that
culture and
video,
art and-
you
yeah.
look so happy. In
Do
the
I?
thumbnail.
It was a fun one. It was a fun video. I got some old Scooby-Doo records that have some fun stories on them, and I've never heard anyone talk about them before. It was very fun. You can find more episodes of this podcast and early on nebula.tv/probablynotaliens, where you can sign up and support us there. You can also support us directly at patreon.com/probsnotaliens if your parasocial relationship with us is strong enough and you have the means to do so. We always say, like, times are tough for everyone, don't stress about it. But if you have the means and you have the desire to support this show, that's a great place to do it. If you don't have money or just don't want to spend money, it's whatever. We always appreciate reviews of this podcast as well on any podcast platform, on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, all the places. It really does help us out, helps people find the show and know that it's a good show. We really appreciate it. And beyond that, I mean, gosh, if you're just looking for more things to do, tell your friends about it. Find someone who's ovulating on a full moon and having a sex dream about aliens and be like, I have the podcast for you. It's this one. And a great place to send all those people is probsnotaliens.com. It's got links to all the stuff that we talked about. But I think that is it. So, until next time, my name is Scott Nicewander.
I'm Tristan Johnson, and the truth is out there. Probably.
Oh gosh, the anticipation.
I was just trying to think about the pregnant pause.
That was a pregnant pause. That one, you're going to have to induce labor.
That was triplets.
You're going to have to induce labor on that one. That was
Oh boy.
too long. That was 10 months. Yikes.
Yikes.